big bazooka for the middle class. That is how some of the panelists on my show earlier today described the Union Budget 2025. For those who missed it, the finance minister announced a big tax relief for the middle class today by proposing no income tax for individuals who earn up to rupees 12 lakhs per annum. Now, I'm joined by Amitabh Kant, former Niti Aayog CEO. Mr. Kant, you are the architect behind the iconic Incredible India campaign. How incredible should India be feeling today?
Well, I think people should feel very thrilled about it because it's a remarkable budget. It's a budget which really pushes for growth, which pushes for consumption, which in turn will drive production, which will drive growth, which will create jobs. And it's a budget which is very focused on labor-intensive sectors as well. So it should be a budget which would end up taking India on the high trajectory growth rate of about 8 to 9% over a long period. And it should also end up creating growth with jobs, which is very important. But I think the remarkable thing about the finance minister is that she's done it in a very fiscally prudent manner with a lot of responsible budgeting, because the fiscal deficit for this year is 4.9%. She brought it down to 4.8%. And then next year, she's targeting for 4.4%. So I think I would really commend her coming out with a really remarkable budget.
You know, this was Nirmala Sitharaman's 8th consecutive budget. It was a record of sorts. She's also grown in stature since the time that she presented her first budget. Many people called her very green at that time, but then she's proved her mettle over the years.
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with her when she first joined as MOS Commerce and Industry. She was new, but she was very, very matured, and she was a very fine minister to work with. And she had it in her, the making of being an outstanding statesman and a great leader. She was very quick at grasping things, and she was very, very, very fast on file clearance. And one thing I really admired about her was she gave 110%, and her integrity was really top class. So she made for an outstanding minister even then.
All right, interesting. I would ask you to rate the budget on a scale of 0 to 10, but I'm assuming it's between 8 to 10, 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10, or 10 out of 10 for you. Is it?
No, actually, I've been thinking on, I've tried to think through over if there's anything which has been missed out in this budget. And I really think she's covered just about virtually every important area. I mean, you can always say that this committee for ease of doing business, instead of 1 year, we can do it in 3 months, or we can, there could be a greater allocation for infrastructure instead of 11.2 lakh crores. But people forget that she's also focused on the national asset monetization pipeline, and she's focused on private-public partnership for every ministry. So the focus on infrastructure is also quite high in this budget. So overall, I would rate her as definitely 9 plus in this budget.
9 plus. So what is that one mark that you've taken away from?
Well, the only other thing I would say would be that the dismantling of the regulatory cholesterol should have been would have been more brutal and more sharp and ruthless by telling everybody to get rid of it in the next, because I believe that India's growth will come not from government, it will come from private sector. It will come from, if India is to grow at 9 to 10% over a 3-decade period, the growth will come from private sector, free enterprise. And there's too much of, the bureaucrats have, and a lot of people in India have a very socialistic and a hangover of previous years. We should just give them 1 month time to remove all rules, regulations, procedures, acts. Regulators also being deserved. They should also be told to get rid of it. And 1 month time is more than enough to scrap everything.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I was going to talk about the whole national manufacturing mission, because as you pointed out in your starting answer, that it's all about growth with jobs. The national manufacturing mission, which she's advocated, would do just that. But the growth would come from the private sector. The investment needs to come from the private sector, which would include small, medium, and big firms. The problems that have held us back in manufacturing all these decades remain. And you're absolutely right to talk about the regulatory cholesterol. Unless ease of doing business is improved with regard to credit, with regard to
No, because
compliance.
I'm saying this because the Prime Minister is a great believer in this. He believes in free enterprise. He believes in uh, you know ease of doing business. He believes in scrapping these rules and regulation. He believes in decriminalization. So this is the only thing I could think of. Everything else, she's ticked off every single box on it.
Right. So the three big problems that a lot of people that we've spoken to, experts, economists, the three big problems, because we are in a slowdown, so to speak. The not the level of slowdown that probably many other economies of the world are facing today, but definitely a slowdown from what we were doing even 1 year ago. We did 8.3% growth in 2023-24, and now we're talking about 6.3 to 6.8% growth for FY26. So definitely there is a slowdown. How does this budget address that slowdown and put us on the curve for 8% plus GDP growth? Because if we are to become a Viksit country by 2047, that 8% per year has to happen. 6.3% won't cut it.
No, so the important thing to understand is that if you want to be a Viksit Bharat, you have to move from 4 trillion to 30 trillion. And this means that your GDP has to grow 9x, your manufacturing has to grow 16x. And that would require us to, one, make things easy and simple, but also ensure that states become the key driver of growth. And states, even today, there's a lot of too many rules, regulations. The electricity rates in India are high, the logistic costs are high. All this needs to come down to make India a competitive nation. You have to become a competitive nation. You have to become very efficient in your manufacturing. All this, therefore, the role of the states is very critical to my mind in this. And second thing is that you have to get into cutting edge technological areas. If Good thing is that she's also announced this clean tech mission, which because we import a lot of solar, we import solar components of about almost 90%. We import 80% of electric vehicle batteries. We import components about 75%. We import electrolyzers, all this. So the dominance of one nation supplying to India is very high in cutting edge areas, and therefore you need to manufacture in India, you need to innovate in India, you need to drive clean tech manufacturing in a very big way. This is very, very important.
Let me just move focus and ask you about the income tax bill, which the finance minister has promised would be available or will come out in a week's time. A lot of announcements have already been made about the income tax. What more can we expect from this bill?
So the income tax present law is very complex. It's difficult. It needs to be made easy and simple. Very few slabs. The hallmark of any great law is simplicity and easiness. And that is what one of the high points of this government has been, that it's believed that whatever you do should be done with simplicity. There should be predictability. There should be consistency. There's no muddle-headed thinking. There's clarity of mind, in all this. And therefore, they're talking about a simple and a very easy act as far as taxation is concerned.
Would you call this big ticket reform in in the income tax vertical, so to speak? But there are many other structural reforms which the economy needs right now to break through those shackles. just what you were talking about, the regulatory, over-regulation. When do you think that, because once that happens, that's when the private sector can break out of its shackles and do whatever it needs to be done to make for a Viksit Bharat.
No, no, that's right. So structural reforms are critical and very, very important. And as we go along, every single sector needs structural reforms. And we need to get the size and scale of manufacturing right because we have too many small producers. You need about 10,000 large companies to penetrate global markets. Unless and until you don't go, you don't have large companies, your cost of production will not come down. These large companies will then have to penetrate global markets. Your domestic demand may subside, but there's a huge export market which you need to penetrate. That will happen only with size and scale. And when you get the size and scale, you will have many MSMEs supplying to the large company. I mean, look at Maruti. When it came in, it brought in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 producers who could then supply. And this is what we need to do. Across the board, large companies make all the difference. They create jobs, but they create their own backward forward linking.
Absolutely. The economic survey, I think this year's economic survey, and put it very succinctly, business as usual carries a high risk of economic growth stagnation, if not economic stagnation. Those lines stand out from the economic survey for me. And thank you so much for talking to us, sir. I know you have other places to go to, but thank you for your time. We hope to speak to you again, probably in the near future, and get more perspective. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.